Now, I'm going to give you background on Chekhov and then also in terms of the movie. Anton Chekhov was born on January 29th, 1860 in Taganrog, Russia, the third of six children. Chekhov's father ran a grocery store in Taganrog. He was a bully, a beater of children, sanctimonious choir master who sold his customers tainted food, then cheated them on the weight and change. If the kids weren't in school, he dragged them to his choir and made them be at services morning and night, day after day. He basked in the churchgoers' admiration for his model brood, a lesson in hypocrisy, which Chekhov certainly explored later in his plays. Chekhov wrote, "In my childhood, excuse me, there was no childhood." Early on, Chekhov developed a flair for mimicry, practical jokes, and play acting, a skilled comic actor with strong instinct for entertaining. He could imitate his elders' speech and walk and gestures, and this flair certainly figured strongly also later in his writing. 1876, his father went bankrupt and fled to Moscow under a rug to save himself from prison with the rest of the family, wife, and 5 children, leaving Chekhov to live by his wits. He kept afloat by tutoring and staying with friends. In 1879, at the age of 19, he joined the family and found them living in poverty, father gone. He got a stipend to attend medical school in Moscow. He became the family breadwinner. He supplemented the family income by writing short comic sketches. His first short story appeared in March 1880 in a magazine called Dragonfly. He wrote, "Medicine is my lawful wife and literature my mistress. When I get fed up with one, I spend the night with the other." By 1888, at 28, he won the Pushkin Prize for short stories. He practiced medicine intermittently, more as a charity than any form of vocation. He realized his real vocation was writing. Before he was a playwright, he was the craftsman of a short story, making every detail suggest others, capturing a moment of someone's life in such a way that we intuitively trace that life beyond the story. His advice to writers: cross out as many adjectives and adverbs as you can. For beginnings of stories, fledgling authors were advised to tear out the first half of their notebook and begin from there. Everything that has no direct relation to the story must be thrown out. As to the descriptions, he says, eliminate the commonplaces, choose small details, regrouping them in such a way that if you close your eyes after reading it, you can picture the whole thing. He examined humanity with the same objectivity that a doctor brings to an examination. He says, man will become better when you show him what he is like. His first play, Ivanov, in 1887, was followed by a series of one-act farces. The Wood Demon, 1889, became raw material for Uncle Vanya 10 years later. In 1896, Seagull was performed at St. Petersburg and was almost hissed off the stage. Oh, he vowed he'd give up dramatic writing. But a year later, a new production was given at the Moscow Art Theater of Seagull with Olga Nipper, whom he later married, and it led him back into dramatic writing. But he had a problem working with Stanislavski, who was known, for the ultra-naturalistic approach, but his procedures were never naturalistic enough for Chekhov. Rather, they were too flamboyant and excessively theatrical. Then came 1899, Uncle Vanya, 1901, Three Sisters, and 1903-04, The Cherry Orchard, which led to his complete collapse from tuberculosis. He died July 15, 1904 at Badenweiler Health Resort in southern Germany. Now, Chekhov had sympathy for the powerless. He loathed oppression, not only of class, but of husband for wife, wife for husband, apprentice by their masters, truth by falsehood, gentleness by violence. He hated bullies, and we know why. He hated the cowardice that creates them and makes us cringe before the possibilities of life. Chekhov plays weren't presented as a chain of episodes that led to a predetermined goal. He allows his characters to take over and rarely manipulates them. While dealing with issues like suicidal moods, pessimism, unhappy love affairs, he balances these with the half playful, the teasing, the inconsequential back chat. That light touch, the throwaway manner, is essential to the seriousness underneath. That aspect was very hard for directors to grasp at that time. They wondered, well, what to do about uttering these simple phrases simply. The vocabulary in Chekhov couldn't be simpler. Stanislavski, in directing The Seagull, did not know a way to proceed. He found the words too simple. And this is often ignored in translations where the translator is more interested in his style than in Chekhov's. Chekhov wanted his plays to be presented naturalistically. And as I said, even Stanislavski was not naturalistic enough for Chekhov. So it's interesting that in 1989, the avant-garde theater director, Andrei Gregory, with his background in Stanislavski and Grotowski, took on Vanya. He said, a play comes along that you fall in love with, and it has to do with some part of myself I need to explore, something in me that time made me mad about the way the United States was going. Also, one of the main themes of Vanya is people dissatisfied with what they have and they want something else. Well, you should celebrate what you have in your life. So Gregory developed Vanya over a 4-year period. And in 1994, it was filmed by Louis Malle. Now, rehearsing Vanya had no goal for a production. Gregory got together with the actors for a couple of months in the summer of 1989, just to work on things, just to learn. They all enjoyed it so much that they said, oh, let's do this again. And that's what they did over the next 4 years, whenever they could, for 4 days or 2 months, whatever. Gregory says, I run rehearsals like a health club for actors. They go out and earn money, and when they have time, they gather and we rehearse. By nature, I'm an ecstatic and create an atmosphere of sheer joy. Over this period, they'd invite some friends in to see what was going on, between 10, 20 people. Gregory says the reason for this intimacy and small audiences is that audiences have become so accustomed to TV and film that he wanted them to have that kind of experience in the theater. Now, Gregory had to convince Wallace Shawn to do the role. Now, Wally, he'd known for years and worked with on My Dinner with Andre in 1981. Wally didn't want to do a theatrical production. He says, I was trying to escape from theater. I can't see the actors well or hear them, and all this shouting, like when the lights come up and 2 people are sitting on a porch and one says in a big voice, how are you doing today? And I'm thinking, why am I looking at this? But Gregory convinced Wally that it was a chance to explore our lives through this wonderful text. Wally liked performing in front of the small group audiences. He says, oh, I like how we spoke in natural voices. In rehearsals, we never talked about the play, motivations, or what was happening in a scene. Andre didn't do that. We did it differently every time. Then Andre would give us notes. Later, when Malle filmed all those close-ups, the actors were already in film actor mode from working in front of those small audiences. Andre Gregory never auditioned actors. He either knew them or consulted with a close friend who was a casting director to guide him to someone he needed. And that's how he came to Julianne Moore. Now, she says about her character, Yelena, oh, she's like Anna Karenina, beautiful and inactive, but feels very modern. She wants to be listened to. I love her. I feel for her because she's trapped in her own fears. The sexuality of Sobrakov has everything to do with the actor who played him, George Gaines. George is a very vibrant, vital guy with a tremendous sexual energy. Those are the kind of things we discovered over the course of practically living together for 4 years. Wally says that George Gaines and Julianne didn't really love doing the play 2 inches away from people. They found it creepy, he said, but as a film, that intimacy would be good. Louis Malle was the perfect director for the play, blending together elements of documentary and traditional narrative. He'd go back and forth between those two. He'd practice quite a bit with a video camera filming bits. Now, Malle was very affectionate toward his actors, but wanted to know things that Gregory never did. Wally says, we spent 6 weeks rehearsing with him asking us questions, some I didn't think were anybody's business, and I was shocked by his asking certain questions. He felt he needed them for the film. Yet, when they filmed, Wally says, we didn't decide how we were going to do each scene. We sort of leapt blindly into the first take and stuck with whatever we did for the rest of the film. Malle captured Andre Gregory's attitude with the rehearsal atmosphere and the small invited audience he brings in. And this sets the attitude and tone, not only for how to watch the play, but the camera also sets up that same tone for how to watch the movie. Once Gregory asked Malle why he wanted to direct Dinner with Andre and Vanya. And Malle said, well, I've always loved the talkies. Now it's time for you to talk.